In the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 Calls to Action, we acknowledge the traditional Indigenous territories on which we gather. We recognize the diverse and unique groups of Indigenous people across Turtle Island or North America, and specifically the diverse cultures, languages, and territories. We are committed to building relationships with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in order to enhance our knowledge of their many languages and histories across their homelands. Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Dixon, Manager of Media Relations for the OPP. I will be the moderator for this virtual media conference. The media release and supporting documents are being distributed through the OPP News portal right now, and they can also be found at opp.ca/news under Media Kits. We are here today to provide two significant updates in relation to an historical homicide case in which the victim became known as the Nation River Lady. Our first speaker will be Deputy Commissioner Marty Kearns, Provincial Commander of the OPP Investigations and Organized Crime Bureau. Deputy Kearns will be followed by Deputy Inspector Daniel Nadeau, the Major Case Manager with the OPP Criminal Investigation Branch. We will then hear from Dr. Dirk Heyer, Chief Coroner for the Province of Ontario, and retired Detective Constable Janice Mulcock, one of the many investigators who had been assigned to the case over the years who became personally invested in finding out who the Nation River Lady was and who killed her. Deputy Kearns, good day.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome and thank our partner, Dr. Dirk Heyer, the Chief Coroner for the Province of Ontario, for making himself available for this very important announcement. Today, we have a significant update to one of the oldest, unsolved, and most unique unidentified remains investigations in OPP history. This unidentified remains investigation that was ultimately linked to a missing person file from out of our province began in 1975, just east of Ottawa. Dedicated members of our local crime unit and the Criminal Investigation Branch have always believed this case was solvable, that we would one day identify the person who became known as the Nation River Lady. Detective Inspector Daniel Nadeau will provide those details shortly. As with all our historical investigations involving serious crime, severe injuries, or death, we try to apply innovative investigative techniques thanks to improved forensic and DNA analysis, the work of our forensic artist, our communications team, media relations, and now social media strategies, all of which have evolved over time. Our goals are to provide resolutions to families and communities, and also to bring those responsible for these crimes to justice. Historic homicide investigations and investigations of missing persons where foul play is suspected are never closed. Police will investigate all tips and leads that come forward. Families and loved ones of homicides seek and deserve resolution. These families learn to live with loss and miss the life events most of us are accustomed to experiencing, such as birthdays, graduations, weddings, and parenthood. In this particular case, there have been multiple appeals since 1975 for information from the public to provide any information to advance this investigation. The goal is to engage our respective audiences to generate conversations among people who may have specific information from the past that was, for whatever reason, never provided to police. In this case, we have always had faith knowing that determining who the Nation River Lady was would lead us to what happened. Today, we can announce we have provided a resolution to her family and to the communities in Eastern Ontario that have lived with this unsolved investigation for over 47 years. Our collaborative approach with our policing partners and the Office of the Chief Coroner for Ontario has produced an opportunity for a grieving family to move forward, having lived with this tragic loss for so long. On behalf of the OPP, I offer my thanks to all of our members, past and present, the Russell County Detachment Crime Unit, OPP East Region Support Team, our partners at the Ontario Coroner's Office, and policing agencies in Quebec and in the United States who have been part of this investigation. Thank you for your diligence, for your collaboration, and for your professionalism. Now I introduce Detective Inspector Daniel Nadeau of the OPP Criminal Investigation Branch to provide you with an investigative update. Dan?
Thank you everyone for viewing today. We now have the opportunity to announce a resolution to one of the longest ever previously unsolved unidentified remains investigation. We have finally identified the Nation River Lady and have criminally charged an individual in connection with her death. On May 3rd, 1975, the remains of a woman were found in the Nation River, a short distance from the Highway 417 bridge near the town of Castleman in eastern Ontario, just east of Ottawa. During the remaining 47 years, the OPP has used a number of methods to try to identify the remains of the so-called Nation River Lady. These initiatives included participating in mainstream media and network television profiles to a dedicated tip lines and descriptions of evidence in our forensic artist drawing, including a 3D facial approximation that was done in 2017. For many years, we made many public appeals for information on anniversaries of her discovery to try to identify the victims and any potential suspect without success. In late 2019, we decided in consultation with the chief coroner and members of the Center of Forensic Science in Toronto to exhume the body of the victims to obtain a new DNA profile. At this point, I welcome Dr. Dirk Heyer, the Chief Coroner of Ontario, to take us through this process and reports on the findings. Dr. Heyer.
Thank you very much, Detective Inspector. First off, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge the years that the family of the deceased person, who is identified as Jewel Langford, did not know where she was or what had happened to her. Sadly, we do now know, and we know tragically it was not the outcome that they were hoping for. We had the opportunity to meet together with the family and share that information. It was a very tough and moving meeting, but one I think that the family finally had information to allow them to have some resolution to the tragic loss of their loved one. Ontario's Death Investigation System, that's the Office of the Chief Coroner, Ontario Forensic Pathology Service, have had an ongoing involvement with Ms. Langford since her death, her discovery in May 1975. We started with a forensic pathologist completing a complete postmortem examination, which provided a cause of death, which provided information for the police to begin and continue their investigation. Without identification, unfortunately, she was buried as an unidentified person, and many different efforts and attempts were made, as Detective Inspector Nadeau talked about. One of those was based upon the ability that we had and the forensic opportunities that we had, which at that point were limited. We had anthropology, forensic anthropologists, a detailed examination. We had a forensic dentist involved, and she had a very unique, described to be a very unique dental appliance. And that appliance was photographed and shared across all dentists through a dental publication to see if anybody recognized that. Unfortunately, that didn't lead to success, and further efforts continued throughout. Now, as DNA science progressed, there were a number of DNA comparisons that were made over years, again, those being unsuccessful over time. And as Detective Inspector Nadeau talked about, with the evolving and the progressing DNA science, we did make a decision to obtain a new DNA profile based upon the new technology and the new science that was available. So we isolated that and managed to, despite many years passing, develop a very effective and clear DNA profile. And that sample was shared with a U.S. organization that works together with law enforcement to do evaluation through a genetic genealogy approach. And the DNA sample was linked with others through a genealogy and family tree analysis, and raised a good potential that the unidentified remains were Ms. Langford. So following that, work was done to meet with the surviving relatives of Ms. Langford, and obtain a number of DNA samples from descendants within the family, many of those being nieces. And that information was brought back to the Centre of Forensic Science in Ontario, and identification was confirmed through that DNA comparison work that was done. So this was a long and ongoing process, never stopping. Many different avenues followed. And I think it speaks to the continued work that our organizations do, the OPP, the the Office of the Chief Coroner and Ontario Forensic Pathology Service, other police services in Ontario are all working and thinking about identification of those in our care, those that we had involvement with that remain unidentified. It's an important priority, and both the OPP and ourselves work closely with the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains. That's a national group that has a national DNA data bank where we compare those samples from unidentified remains with samples that have been provided by families of missing persons, and a number of identifications have been occurring over the past number of years. I want to thank the OPP, specifically Detective Inspector Nadeau, for the opportunity to attend today, and I will pass back over to my colleague, Inspector Daniel Nadeau.
Thank you, Dr. Heyer, and to everyone at the Center of Forensic Science for your diligence, professionalism, and your impressive work. In 2020, the victim was identified as a 48-year-old Jewel Lala Langford. Her maiden name was Jewel Parchman. Jewel was a prominent member of the business community in Jackson, Tennessee, USA. Jewel Langford was born in March 1927 and had traveled to Montreal in April 1975. She never returned home, and at that time, her family in Tennessee had reported her missing. I now call upon retired Detective Constable Janice Smallcock to tell us about Jewel's life and what was learned from her family. Janice?
Thank you, Detective Inspector. Jewel Parchman Langford. First and foremost, Jewel was a beloved daughter, sister, aunt, cousin, and friend. When she left the United States for Canada, she did so promising to remain in touch with every one of them. Unfortunately, that was a promise she was unable to keep. Her family and friends knew something was terribly wrong. She loved them dearly and was devoted to all of them, and they knew it. So adored in life that when her ex-husband of many years learned of her disappearance, rallied with her mother, siblings, and friends to search for her. In her professional life, Jewel was a successful business owner of a health spa that she co-owned with her ex-husband. In this respect, she truly was a woman ahead of her time. In fact, so successful, she was the chair and president of the Jackson, Tennessee chapter of the American Businesswomen's Association, and in 1971 was voted Woman of the Year by her colleagues. She was a leader, mentor, and her enthusiasm was inspirational. Employees who worked for her in her health spa became her friends. In January 1973, Jewel passed on the following words. First, carefully choose what you want to make of your life. Set your goal, work toward that goal, give your employer and customer their money's worth. Keep yourself physically fit, neat, attractive, sincere, and above all, keep trying. It is without a doubt that had Jewel's life not been taken from her, she would have lived on for many more years to be adored and loved by all who knew her. Years ago, the words, "In memory of Jewel P. Langford, missing but not forgotten," were inscribed on a memorial headstone. These words, depicted by her family and friends, not forgotten, will forever remain true. And now we can all collectively, family, friends, and strangers alike, be grateful that the word missing will be replaced on her headstone with the words, "Finally home and at peace."
While I can't get into the specifics that will be entered as evidence at trial, I can tell you that the accused and the victims were known to each other. We believe this is the first historic homicide cases in Ontario where human remains have been identified through forensic genealogy. OPP would like to acknowledge and thanks past and present members of the OPP for their investigative diligence over the years. We would like also, again, to acknowledge members of the Center of Forensic Science, the Office of the Chief Coroner for Ontario, members of Montreal Police, the FBI in Tennessee and Florida, and their respective victim specialists teams, and the genetic genealogy team at the DNA DOE project for their important contributions to bring resolutions to the Jules family. We remind anyone watching who may be missing a loved one that we welcome their inquiries on their cases. I can assure you that every lead is investigated and all available resources are allocated to promising areas of investigations. Thank you.
This concludes the formal portion of this media conference. Now, pre-scheduled follow-up interviews will begin shortly. There may still be some time slots available for interviews, so you can reach out to me at bill.dixon@opp.ca to schedule an interview. That's for official media only, of course. Thank you for joining us for this very significant announcement today. Stay safe.